Alrighty, yo, what is up, mates? Aegis Rick here, back with some more DFO Crash, this time on my female Nen. Those of you guys who have been on the Aegis Rick channel and following along for a really long time, I mean basically since we started this game, you guys know I have a little bit of a history with FNen. At one point in time, I might have considered this character perhaps one of the strongest characters on my account. I invested a lot in this character. You guys can see though, that has definitely changed over the years. You guys can see I do indeed have a legendary set, avatar set, which is so ancient. This thing has got to be the first avatar set I bought. I even got something like this, which I know a lot of you guys don't have, which is, you know, just goes to show how much I cared about this character at one point in time. I did try to get her talismans via the event, but unfortunately didn't get any unique ones, and this character does have some pretty decent uniques. But anyway, guys, I do have a little bit of a history. I'll talk about that a little bit more after we talk about the pros and cons with the FNen. Alrighty, guys, first and foremost, female Nen has some insane AOE. She has so many skills that have basically room-wide reaching range, and thus it makes her an extremely efficient farmer. Next, and I really talked about this first with my paladin, I think that the female Nen has great versatility, and by that I mean she can basically excel at any content in the game, whether it be solo content, farming content, or even joining parties. She's going to excel and be a very highly valued member in that situation. She can do pretty much anything in the game. Lastly, guys, female Nen also is in that rare class of synergies, which is a speed synergy, and on top of that she also has some other abusive skills like the Nen Guard, which is above and beyond just the normal damage buff that synergies can provide. Alright, and on to her cons. First and foremost, she has massive cooldowns. Now this coincides with the fact that she has massive AOE, and so it kind of makes sense that the cooldowns on those skills are also equally as massive. Luckily, she does have a lot of sustain that can help her in the interim before she gets her big cooldowns back. Next, and this is the main reason why she's really fallen in popularity on my account, is that she is really by the numbers. What you're going to find is that you're going to be doing most content by just going into a room and then casting your AOE skill and rinse and repeat. There's not much else to this character, and thus why I haven't really given her all that much more attention. And lastly, guys, this is pretty minor and subjective, but dude, have you guys seen her 3A? This is definitely the worst out of all the F fighters, probably among the worst that we've seen thus far out of all of them. Alrighty, guys, so those are my quick opinions about that. I want to do like I did on my F Brawler video also, just kind of going over the important passives on the FNen. First and foremost, guys, we have Kai, okay? And I want to bring up Kai because it is her buff skill. You guys can see right here, because she's a synergy character, she's also providing a 34% damage buff. This is the same for all synergy characters, but the one thing I want to focus in on, guys, is that she actually gives herself a different buff. She gives herself a small skill and basic attack damage buff, but also a flat amount of light damage. And in fact, this is level 11. At level 20, which is the maximum, you're getting close to 80 light damage, which basically forces your hand in terms of what type of elemental damage you can do. You can only do light damage on the Nen. So, I mean, it is technically possible to do other elemental damage, basically anything you want, but because of the Kai and because you get a flat amount, you have to basically go light damage. And this is a rare effect and why I wanted to talk about it, but this character can benefit off of that if you have some light Eleanor, additional elemental damage, for instance. Stacking high elemental damage on a class like Nen is no problem. The other thing I want to kind of bring up is the Spiral Nen. Now, generally speaking, I wouldn't even give this skill any mind. I mean, look at it, it's so innocuous and so innocent, but a lot of the Korean Nens out there actually get the TP for this skill, and the reason being it provides a lot of sustained damage, especially in light of the new 3A passive that we get that basically buffs it up by a lot, and it also auto targets people instead of just floating around you. So that's a skill that's, I would say, a big change with the 3A patch. And lastly, guys, the thing that I might not have a chance to explain is the Nen Compress. You guys can see here, every time she casts a skill and charges it up a little bit, she actually gets those Nen Orbs, which basically we have two different systems then. We have Nen Orbs with the Nen Compress, and we have Nen Balls here with the Spiral Nen. So you're going to be seeing all of these things when we showcase the female Nen. So let's go. Alrighty, guys, so you know, I had to check my recording. Unfortunately, I didn't record those first two runs, but I'll do them again just for the sake of the video. But guys, just like brushing our teeth, guys, we've got to do our 2+2 every single day. Do not, you know, forget it. I know this might get kind of boring, or actually, I think this is kind of a good yardstick about how hard the content or how strong the character can be if you can start doing 2+2. So I think it's a good yardstick. I like doing it for that purpose, but let me spend this time a little bit to talk a little bit about the identity of Nen. How does Nen play? And in fact, you know, it's kind of good that I showcase some other characters that are very similar to Nen, like the female brawler and the paladin. Okay, I've already showcased videos on those. I've showcased how they played, and this character is a great combination of both of those characters. You guys can see a lot of what the interim damage that I do is going to be with the Tiger Flash here, which is my augmented X string. Again, I bring this up again because my fighters have, for some reason, have a lot of characters that can do this. So FNen as well as the female brawler have augmented X strings, and that can kind of hold her over in terms of her cooldown while she's waiting for her much longer cooldown skills, which that's going to be the call to fame about this character, is that she has some great AOE and decent damage with these skills, but the problem is they have these incredibly long cooldowns. You guys can see here 20-30 seconds. So in their interim, you're going to be hitting with your Tiger Flash, and then on top of that your Spiral Nen, which I kind of talked about when I was going over the passives. That is a new skill, relatively new skill, that we're going to be using to dish out a little bit of I'm going to hit him with this new skill right here. Dish out a little bit of sustained damage while you're waiting for your cooldown. So those two things are kind of what her call to fame is. You guys can see you can get out of here. So I can block this with my little Nen guard here, which you guys can see how pitiful the HP is on that thing. And coming back and take him out pretty easily. So yeah, when you have the cooldowns to fight an enemy, you're going to be pretty good. But in terms of her sustained damage, that's kind of part of the reason why the Spiral Nen had to get max and you put the TP into it. And that's why her 3A passive is relatively good in that regard, because it gives you some more sustained damage. Because aside from that, your cooldowns are kind of horrible on this character, but it kind of balances out, because once you start getting a lot stronger on Nen, you're going to be able to use one skill and basically kill the whole room. Unfortunately, I'm just a little bit too weak to one-shot this room, but you're going to start getting to that point where you can start using skills and guys are going to be dying in one hit, and so you only need one skill per room. That's kind of, I think, how the identity of the character is meant to be played. Once you get strong enough, you abuse the fact that you have these like really good AOE moves to wipe out rooms, and that's kind of why a lot of people like Nen. A lot of people like using her for farming purposes and stuff like that for that very reason. So, and you guys can see, even for single target enemies like that guy, she has a couple skills that are really nice for that purpose as well. Mini boss killing, I like saying, because they're great for that purpose. So even room-wide AoEs like this, like F-Brawler doesn't have that, okay? So that's why I like saying that this character is very similar to Paladin in a lot of ways, because Paladin is much the same way, where she also has some relatively long cooldown skills that have great AoE, but, the difference here is that Nen actually has a little bit better sustain, I think, personally. So anyway, kind of wasted that skill. But this time I'm going to go ahead and use the first and the third awakening, and we'll see the difference between that. Maybe I should have used another skill before that, but kind of hold him in place. Make sure I detonate my Nen flowers before he runs away. Chase him with this. They have changed that skill a little bit in the past, unfortunately. I used to like it a lot more than I do now, but okay. You still got a hit in there. Hit with this. Get on the other side. She is pretty quick. You guys can see here. One of the call to fames of this character, she's actually a speed synergy, so she actually benefits off of, the speed that she provides herself and her party. So much like Paladin, again, why I wanted to bring Paladin up in this discussion, she is a speed synergy as well. So she has two different skills that can buff up speed, and so like I said about the Paladin, that's a very exclusive club in DFO. Yes, there's a lot of synergy characters, but a lot of them just provide that damage effect, the 34% damage which this character provides. But then also, skills like Sun's Breath give, her party move speed. Skills like the Tiger Flash also give some move speed as well. So it's an exclusive club that you got to be a part of too. Or you got to basically, it makes the synergies a little bit different, I guess a different tier of synergy effects, more supportive than most of the synergies in this game. But, the reason why I want to bring up Paladin so much is because you guys can see right there, I do have the Nen guard, and it is a little bit of an abusive skill to use to basically AoE tank attacks, which, again, the Paladin can do that as well, I think a lot better. But the Nen guard is something everybody always wants to bring up about Nen. I don't think it's that abusive as people seem to think. It has pitiful HP. I think in total, even if you were to like TP and max a skill and stuff like that, in total it probably has like about as much HP as you do normally. So the shield is going to break very easily, okay? It can't tank a lot of hits. and the healing that it does on it only does a percentage of that total HP. So in total, even in the best case scenario, it's not going to be healing all that much. So I don't like using it for healing, you know. She also has the skill Saint Illusion, which I guess is technically another heal. Its effectiveness is about as strong as something like a healing prayer on, you know, F Satyr, like one of their low-level healing skills. So again, we're using Saint Illusion, which is a big 4-hit combo with the illusions. Doesn't do all that much damage. So in the grand scheme of things, guys, it's not doing very much. But you guys can see the abusiveness right there. I did want to showcase it against this boss. That attack right there sometimes is pretty annoying to dodge, and you can use Nengard to kind of tank right through it. It does tank through the hit and give you, I wouldn't say iframe, but more like, you know, you're just avoiding the attack for a little bit of time when the shield breaks, or when the shield comes up and when the shield breaks. That time, I don't know, like about a second of, I guess you can consider it iframe, where you're just not having to worry about the gimmick of the attack. And that's a perfect attack to showcase that on. Anything more dangerous than that, you're going to have some problems trying to block attacks on Nen, because, you know, it's useful for what it does. Let's put it that way. So, Male Nen also has that, and in fact, I'm going to be showcasing. It's going to be fun to do all the fighters and then doing the male counterparts, the male fighters afterwards, because there's a lot of similarities and differences. Like, both of them have Nengard, and they both basically do the same thing, despite one being looking drastically different than the other. So, you guys can see here the sustained damage while I'm waiting for cooldowns, so I don't have to burn through some big skills. I can just kind of, you know, X-string, and again, we're seeing a little bit of both. I don't know if you guys see that as well as I do, but I see that clear as day, where it's like, dude, I see female brawler in this character, and I see paladin as well, proto-paladin. I just don't think her, you know, yes, she's a speed synergy, so we got to give her credit where it's due there, but I just don't see the same level of abusiveness that paladin has. You know, paladin is an extremely, like, a powerhouse when it comes to you know, the kinds of synergy she provides. She's almost like another satyr in a party. That's how good she is. You know, she can have so many abusive moves to tank through attacks and heal. And I just don't think that Nen has that same level. She does have the speed, and she does have Nengard, but aside from that, her healing is like, I hardly even mention it as a thing. But, it, you know, like I said, she's been around for so much longer, and she still provides a lot to her party. No doubt. Let's start doing some content that, you know, I find myself doing the most. Obviously, let's keep going to DC and Assault mode. I got to showcase how good her AOE is, because yes, 2-2 does have some AOE, but I don't know if you're able to see it as well as you can in a place like this. So, Donning Crevice and Assault mode. I mean, dude, this is like almost room wide, and I don't have any talismans to make it. I think the talismans make it even more abusive, but we're talking almost room wide, so it's much more effective than you think. And skills perfectly designed for certain scenarios. I haven't even talked about this doppelganger thing yet. Doppelganger, pretty low cooldown skill. Yet another one of those I would consider sustained skills because of how low its cooldown is, comparatively speaking, to her other skills. But they did change that with her 3A. That's her other 3A skill. So I talked a little bit about the Spiral Nen and how it's a pretty decent sustain. It's kind of hard to tell with the Spiral Nen, right? You get two you know, Nen balls, but when you use certain skills, it kind of, you see how it attached to him and did a little bit of damage? See right there, the little orb that, or bead that attaches to them? That's basically happening at all times with this character with the new 3A passive. But, so that's what's giving you a lot of the damage. But what else has changed is also the doppelganger explosion right there. You guys can see right there. It blows up immediately. I think it has bigger range. You can charge it up, and it tags on top of the nearest high priority target, so it has a little bit of utility there. My only complaint about the new doppelganger explosion is the fact that it did get buffed up with the new 3A. You know, it just got buffed up to be more effective, but the problem is it lost a little bit of functionality. You no longer have the ability to just let it stand there and place it in position, which does have some use cases. You know, if you know a person's going to be spawning in, for instance, and you want to set up, you know, a little bit, you want to set up the doppelganger explosions beforehand, you can no longer do that because the doppelgangers explode immediately. But, you know, aside from that small gripe, it is also, you know, actually one other thing about the new passive of doppelganger explosion. There are two different versions, okay? This one right here, which explodes immediately, and then this other one, which I have I don't know if this is just me, but I have a very hard time not accidentally casting this other version which targets on top of an enemy. It's hard to do, mostly because that one right there, it jumps onto an enemy instead of staying onto the ground. The reason I have trouble with that is it turns out that what's happening is the Nen compress, okay? And that's another system that I'm going to talk about here in this next run. But Nen compress is the little thing that causes these little Nen orbs to show up. And you guys can see they show up every time I get a little cast bar here up to full. And what it's doing is basically I can have the ability to charge up skills or not charge up skills. You guys can see the difference right there in terms of the cast time. It's a lot faster to cast a non-charged version, but when I do charge it up, you know, to full, you guys can see here, I get a Nen orb. Now, the difference when you do that with Doppelganger is very subtle. You have to be very intentional not to accidentally cast a Nen compressed version if you want to get the old version that just explodes on spot. So the one that explodes on spot has better AOE than the one that has an compressed version, but trust me, it's something that it's hard to explain. You just have to try it yourself because this thing it's so sensitive. It always, like, look at that. See, I didn't even mean to do that, and it charged that guy. It's because the Nen compress is so sensitive. You can only barely touch the skill, the Doppelganger skill, for you to get the version that just explodes on spot. See right there, I have to almost intentionally, you know, hit my finger on the keyboard. That's one very small nuance, very hard to explain. Something you're gonna have to try out yourself. Maybe you guys don't have an issue with that, but I do. One complaint I have about the character. But aside from that, guys, hopefully I'm able to show off. This character does have a lot of, I think, a very balanced skill set, you know. Yes, balanced in the sense that, you know, she has sustained damage and high AOE skills. But I think the high AOE skills thing works only when you start getting damage on this character. So if you aren't able to start one-shotting these guys in one hit, you're going to have a hard time with this character. Okay, I'm going to say twice as hard, because what's going to end up happening is that skills that generally have these crazy long cooldowns, you're now going to have to use 2 of them per room, and that's just not enough. You don't have enough skills to be able to do that and able to clear in an efficient manner. So that's kind of the thing. There's some kind of wall, I would say, or some kind of limit where this character all of a sudden starts getting really abusive, and that limit is basically with your damage right there, getting the wrong version again. So hopefully I was able to explain why the Doppelganger is kind of a nerf, but I guess I just had to get better at not holding down this button for too long. I have to tap it so quickly to get the version I want. But yeah, this character's wall is definitely her damage. If she has to use too many skills, she's going to have some trouble. But you will notice that her grouping is not the best, you know. So unlike female brawler, who basically kind of has to try to group enemies first and then hit them with her lower range skills, this character just has huge range skills, and hopefully she can kill with those skills that she has. You guys can see here. I did nothing but X-string the whole time there. But like I said, this character can do it. You know, once you get enough damage, you can do that, and all of a sudden when you are able to do that, this character becomes a monster of a farmer. I think I can best show that off in some of the hardest, or I wouldn't say hardest, the biggest AOE content that we have, Disaster Sector. The enemies are so spread out here. You want characters that can one-shot, but also have huge AOE, and this is where you're going to see the Nen shine, I think. You know, you have a whole bunch of skills that are like room-wide covering. Look at that. Just 3 skills, 3 rooms. Easy as that. We're going to get the Nen, or the Lion's Roar, back, and I think this is probably where I'm able to show off the strengths of Nen the best. You know, so I think this character is a great farmer for this reason. You need, for DS3 at least, and there's not much other content, maybe Stormy, but for DS3 especially, it's so obvious. You need some crazy AOE to be able to do this. My brawler, I was even scared to do it on my brawler because of how much, you know, AOE she's lacking. I would definitely not farm it. But when if I got even a little bit stronger than this character would be absolutely monster. I don't think I've shown off my 2A as much, but the 2A is also an immediately damaging room-wide skill. I think it is universal room-wide right there. Actually, they might have nerfed it. Back in the day, it used to be universal room-wide. Hit anything on the map, as long as it was spawned into the map, it would actually hit them. They had to nerf that because that was so good. But, you know, her 2A is also instant cast, which, again, I've kind of mentioned about how, man, these guys are not dying. I kind of mentioned how the fighters have some fast awakenings. You know, that's their call to fame, I would say. Their fast awakenings are something that define them as characters. In the 2A, the 1A, 2A, all of those things are extremely fast awakenings and go to show how strong this character, or how abusive this character can be in this type of content. So, oh shoot, she has 2 forms. Okay, there you go. Not as quick as normal, but you guys can see here, I do use this character quite a bit to farm this kind of content. And she's one of the best, let's put it that way. One of the best. She's among the best characters. I'm talking Ghost Boy, I'm talking, you know, characters like, she's like Ghost Boy, Swift Master, these types of characters who have just AOE kings. She can definitely hang with the best of them, let's put it that way. So, but again, this is not all content in DFO. So, you know, there's generally not going to be one character that's the best at everything. I know you guys are probably thinking of a few characters that excel at a lot of different things, but this character, I think she excels at a lot of different things, especially being a synergy character. I think this is a useful character to have on your account. You know, it's why, you know, initially I had no real big problem gearing this character because I knew she would be an asset onto the account. In fact, the history I have with this character is she was the second character I think I've ever dedicated to gearing in this game. Back in 85 cap, you know, I had my Elven Knight, that was obvious, but I didn't really have anybody else that I really cared all that much about until I got a really useful weapon called Berserk on this character, and then I just invested in this character, and I honestly didn't regret it. I didn't regret playing her. Because I knew she would be a valuable asset to the account. The problem is, and I'm going to start talking cons now because I've been praising this character too much. Time to start shit talking, okay? The problem with this character is just that it's too simple. It's too simplistic of a game style. Yes, I love using her for this type of content. Abusing her, the fact that she has these like crazy awesome AoEs, you know. Abusing these... abusing her for this type of content, but I felt like her gameplay really is a little bit too stale for me. She doesn't rely too heavily on anything but just making sure she gets the NEN compressed versions of all of her skills. That's kind of the main thing that you're going to see me doing, is that all I'm doing really is getting into a good position and using a big AoE when I do this kind of content. You know, I'm getting into position and using a big AoE. And if not, well, I guess I'll just, you know, hit you with a couple my sustain skills and then, you know, rinse and repeat. And this is gonna be the case pretty much the whole time with this character. I mean, I've tried to make this character work. I've tried to give this character a lot more attention, but unfortunately I'm just not seeing it with this character. I mean, I think I would much rather, and this is not saying much, but you know, I'd much rather the Paladin in that situation. She's more of a, you know, I feel like if I'm gonna have to play a character, I would definitely take the Paladin over this character. I still think the Paladin is one of the best at, you know, everything. Still the most versatile character in DFO. But this character, yeah, sure, this character can do it as well. Skill right here got changed recently to become better AoE, less burst damage. I say recently, that's probably a couple years ago, but yeah, I definitely think this character is useful, but unfortunately just too stale in terms of the gameplay variety. I mean, at least with the content that I was doing, and I seriously need to learn how to not cast that version. At least with the gameplay variety, you know. That's kind of my criticism about the character, and that's basically it. If you like this type of gameplay, though, if you like AoE and you like having... I think she has a good balance of sustaining AoE now, especially with the new NEN, Spiral NEN. Does help a lot in those situations where, you know, she doesn't have the cooldowns ready. But one thing I did forget to talk about with the NEN compress is that, so yes, I'm casting all of these skills, their charge variants, to keep my NEN orbs up, which also, by the way, buffs up her NEN implosion, which is the big Kamehameha wave. It's the only skill that actually expends the orbs, and it doesn't even expend them if you bother with charging that skill up too. So anyway, it's a little bit complicated. Just read the skill. It's actually much more simple than I'm making it seem. But one other thing that she gets is super armor. So you guys can see right here, one of the reasons she's so abusive in this kind of content is because she can't really be interrupted whenever she uses a NEN compressed version of the skill. You guys can see that super armor actually persists for a couple seconds afterwards too. You guys can see, I think it's like 2 or 3 seconds long. Now I'm getting comboed, obviously, but you guys can see that's part of the reason, even during the animation of her casting it, you guys can see right there, I get super armor. So it's yet another thing that, you know, she actually can tank through attacks and make sure that she gets her attacks off, which makes it a lot more, you know, I think a good character to explain the problem when you don't have super armor is like Weapon Master, okay? Weapon Master is a character who also has some good AOEs, some good like Draw Sword, Lightning Draw Sword. Problem is, those skills generally don't give AOE, or sorry, don't give super armor, you know? So you're getting into position, but there's a high likelihood that if an enemy is about to hit you, he can just interrupt Draw Sword and completely negate all of what you were trying to do. Can't do that with this character, okay? This character can just freaking super armor and tank through anything, and she's gonna get her skills off. The only thing that stops her is CC. So, and that's pretty rare. Nobody's going to hit you with a CC, but I'm going to get my skill off. So that's another thing. I don't think a lot of the big AoE farmers can really claim. Not even Paladin has that ability. Instead, she kind of she kind of dodges the issue by just having really fast AoEs. You guys can see I have to charge up my skill for a second before it comes out. But, you know, charging through it, as long as I get the skill off, that's kind of the benefit. You don't get interrupted on this character. So, that's the kind of the awesome thing about Nen Compress. It gives you a ton of buffs. It gives you a stronger Nen Implosion. But the coolest thing about Nen Compress is the fact that you get super armor on your skills. So anyway, guys, I think that is about everything I wanted to talk about Nen. I know that I haven't really done any harder content, and I really am not doing much harder content than this. I did want to showcase this character off in this content because it's exactly what I'm using her for, and I think she is a great character for that. Again, I want to also mention, I mentioned this a little bit at the start of the series, but, you know, the characters that I'm showing off all the characters in the game, okay? In my level of experience and the level of things that I'm doing on all the characters is not the same. There are different points of gear, and my level of experience with each of the characters is a lot different, okay? And I'm just going to tell you right now that do not take what I say and my opinions as gospel about the characters, okay? I'm showing what's capable, what I'm using the character for. Doesn't mean that's what she's capable of, okay? I know she's capable of doing everything in this game. Obviously, every character is, but my experiences have definitely shaped what my opinions are and stuff like that. I've just broken my weapon. So, never, whether it be me or anybody else on the internet, always take what they say with a grain of salt, and you know, make sure to form your own opinions as well as, you know, hear from experts of the class. But yeah, got to try to cover my bases because a lot of people, you know, I'm not going to cover everything about the character. Quite frankly, I don't know everything about every character in this game. I have played this game a lot, but I haven't played every character a lot, you know, and a lot of characters, Nen included. Yes, I have a history with them, but in terms of my experience, especially with recent experience, you know, with the 3As and stuff like that. You know, here's a good example. When F-Brawler and F-Striker got released, I knew basically immediately what was good and bad about them. For this character, I had to do like a little bit of research. I had to see, you know, I had to play her again. You know, I had to get a feeling about how this character plays. And, you know, that's kind of also the thing about this character. It's really easy to get back into the groove of things with this character. But, you know, that's the thing. Okay, I knew immediately with the female Brawler and the female Striker what was wrong and good about this character. With this character, not as much, but hopefully I was able to showcase a little bit of how the character plays and what I personally use her for. But again, leave your experience, whether or not you like it or whether or not you're interested in trying this character further, in the comments below. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I will catch you nights later.